The moment you begin to truly trust the Almighty, you will find a sense of calmness settling into your heart that no wealth, position or companion could ever provide. This kind of trust is not built overnight. It is born through hardship, nurtured by patience and perfected in those moments where you feel like everything around you is crumbling. But even when the doors close, even when the people leave, even when the road ahead is filled with darkness, you will still move forward because you believe that nothing is impossible for Allah. When you rely on Allah, fear disappears. The heart that truly believes in the power, mercy and control of its Creator will not be shaken by what it sees on the outside. The world can collapse around such a person, but inside them is a peace that cannot be disturbed. That peace doesn't come from wealth, from people, or from a life without hardship. It comes from knowing that no matter what happens, Allah is fully aware, fully in control, and fully capable of changing any situation in your favor. The one who relies on people will be disappointed again and again, but the one who relies on Allah finds contentment even before the solution arrives. Because trust in Allah is not just about waiting for results, it is about believing that whatever He decides is already the best outcome. There are moments in life when fear takes over the mind. Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of people, fear of loneliness, fear of death, fear of what might happen tomorrow. These fears can become so heavy that they paralyze a person. But when that fear is replaced with reliance upon the Almighty, suddenly those same situations are handled with wisdom and calmness. It doesn't mean that hardship disappears. It means the heart no longer breaks when it sees difficulty. It means the heart now responds with patience, prayer and peace. Imagine walking into a battlefield knowing that the King of all kings is standing beside you. That's how a believer moves through life. They don't walk alone. They carry with them the remembrance of their Lord, and that alone strengthens them against any fear. When the believers were surrounded by enemies from every direction and their hearts reached their throats out of fear, what did they say? They said, "Sufficient for us is Allah, and He is the best disposer of affairs." That statement alone can calm the storm inside a person. When you say it with conviction, the worry begins to melt. Because you're telling your soul that you are not alone, that the one who created the heavens and the earth is with you. The one who split the sea, who revived the dead, who healed the broken, who forgives the greatest of sins, He is watching and He never sleeps. The one who relies on Him knows that the night may be long, but the morning will come. That behind the dark clouds, the sun is still shining. Reliance is not weakness, it is the greatest form of strength. It means you do your part, but you don't destroy your heart over what's not in your hands. You plan, you prepare, you work, but you place your success in the hands of the Almighty. That is the secret to sleeping peacefully at night, even when the world is filled with chaos. That is the secret to smiling when others are drowning in panic. Because the one who relies on Allah doesn't base their hope on results, but on the knowledge that their Lord is all-wise and that whatever happens is being written with mercy. Some people rely on their contacts, on their intelligence, on their wealth, but all of these things can vanish in an instant. And when they do, those who relied on them are left broken. But the one who always relied on the giver of those blessings, when the blessings disappear, they still have the source. And when you have the source, the resources will return in a better form, or they will be replaced with something more beneficial for your soul. That's why a believer who relies on Allah is never truly shaken. They may cry, they may feel pain, but their trust in Allah holds them steady. Every prophet went through moments of fear, but what made them great was that they responded with reliance. When Musa stood before the Red Sea and his people said, "We're trapped," what did he say? "No, my Lord is with me. He will guide me." That is the response of a heart that relies. That is the kind of heart that changes fear into strength, despair into hope, and weakness into patience. That is what happens when reliance on Allah becomes more than just words, it becomes a lifestyle. And when that happens, you will see your mindset shift. You won't fall apart when people leave you. You won't lose yourself when things don't go your way. Because your strength does not come from what you can see, it comes from the one who sees everything. There is so much uncertainty in life. No one knows what tomorrow holds, but those who trust in Allah live with a different kind of confidence. They plan for the future, but they don't fear it. They take precautions, but they don't lose sleep over what they cannot control. because they know that everything happening is by the permission of Allah, and if He allowed it, there is good in it. Even if it's hidden, even if it's delayed, even if it's painful, there is good, and that belief changes the way they react to every trial. Sometimes the very thing you feared becomes the door to your greatest transformation. Sometimes what you tried so hard to avoid becomes the means through which Allah elevates you. But you won't see that wisdom unless you trust Him. You won't experience that beauty unless you surrender the outcome to Him. And that's what reliance is. It's not giving up. It's giving in to the will of the one who knows better than you. And when you do that, you will find that fear no longer controls you. It visits your mind, but it doesn't enter your heart. Delays are not denials. That is a truth every believer must carry with them. Sometimes we ask for something in dua and we don't see it coming. The heart begins to wonder, did Allah hear me? Is He not going to answer? But the truth is, He always hears. He always responds. But His response may not look like what we imagined. And that is where the wisdom lies. A delay in what you want may be preparation for what you need. A delay may be protection. A delay may be a way to soften your heart and turn you back to Him. If you were given everything instantly, how many times would you forget Him? When a person truly believes that delays are part of a greater plan, their heart stops complaining. Instead, they become grateful even while waiting. They learn to see the blessing in the waiting itself, because it brings them closer to Allah. It makes them pray more. It humbles them. It purifies them. And that is sometimes more valuable than the thing they are asking for. Allah never delays without purpose. Every second of that delay is a part of your growth. Every unanswered dua is working in the background in ways you don't even realize. But only those who trust will see that wisdom. Think about the farmer. He plants the seed and he waits. He doesn't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. He trusts the process. He waters it. He protects it. But he knows that the fruit will come at the right time. If that's how we trust the systems of this world, how much more should we trust the plan of the one who created this world? Sometimes what you're asking for is too small, and Allah is delaying because He wants to give you something much bigger. But your eyes are so focused on the door in front of you that you don't see the gates that are opening behind you. That's why trusting Him is more important than understanding the outcome. If your heart is at peace with His plan, your life will be filled with blessings, even if it's not filled with the things you thought you wanted. There are du'as we made years ago that we forgot, but Allah did not forget. He may bring their answers when we least expect, or in a form we didn't recognize. And when it happens, you'll look back and smile, because the delay made it sweeter, the waiting made it more valuable, the hardship that came in between made you more grateful. All of it was written with love, with mercy, and with perfection. When things are delayed, it's a chance to reflect. Maybe there's something you need to fix in your life. Maybe Allah is using the delay to push you toward purification. Maybe He wants you to become more sincere in your dua. Maybe He wants you to rely less on people and more on Him. Every delay is a message, and those who trust Him will read that message with patience and faith. In this life, not everything you ask for will come in the way you want, but everything that is good for you will reach you if you trust the one who controls it. And when that trust becomes real, when it's not just in words but in action, your entire life begins to change. You stop rushing what's meant to take time. You stop blaming yourself for what was never yours to begin with. And you stop comparing your journey to others, because you know that what's written for you will find its way to you, not a second early or late. Trust is not just a feeling, it's a choice. Every day you choose to rely on Allah. You choose to believe in His mercy. You choose to accept His timing. And when you do that consistently, your soul becomes free from anxiety. You begin to taste the sweetness of faith. Even in moments of silence, you feel that connection. Even in moments of emptiness, you feel surrounded by His presence. That is the gift given to those who trust. There are people who seem to have everything, yet they live with fear. And there are others who have very little, but they sleep peacefully. The difference is trust. One heart is connected to the dunya, the other is connected to the Creator. And the one who is connected to the Creator never fears the creation. They walk with dignity, they speak with calm, they react with wisdom. Because their strength is not from themselves, it is from the one they trust. Every single moment that you turn to your Lord with sincerity, even if the words barely come out of your mouth, even if your heart is filled with doubt, even if you feel distant and unworthy, He hears you. That whisper, that cry, that quiet plea in the middle of the night, or that tear that slips down your face when you're overwhelmed, none of it goes unnoticed. The problem is never whether your dua is heard. The real question is whether your heart has learned to trust His response. So many people are quick to assume that if they don't see immediate results, their dua has been rejected. But the truth is, your dua was accepted the very moment you made it with a sincere heart. It's just that the answer may not come in the way you expected or at the time you desired. And this is where true faith shows itself, not when the dua is answered instantly, but when the heart remains firm, even when the sky seems silent. There are moments when you make dua and feel like the silence is louder than your request. You ask again and again, yet your situation doesn't change. The job doesn't come. The illness remains. The heartbreak lingers. And in those moments, shaitan will whisper to you, telling you that your dua is weak, that you are not worthy, that perhaps your sins have blocked the response. But you must remember that your Lord is not stingy, He is not absent, He is not unaware. He is Al-Sami, the all-hearing, and Al-Mujib, the one who responds. He does not need you to raise your voice for Him to hear you. Even the dua you make silently in your heart is heard louder in the heavens than the words you scream in desperation. The key is to keep asking and to trust that you are being heard every time. Because sometimes the answer is not a change in your situation, but a change in your heart. Sometimes the response is not the removal of the hardship, but the increasing your strength to endure it. And when that happens, your dua has still been accepted, even if you didn't realize it. The beauty of dua is that it connects you to the source of all power. It reminds you that no matter how helpless you feel, you are never without help. It humbles you because you realize that your strength lies not in what you can control, but in who you can call upon. That's why dua is not just a request, it's an act of worship. The moment you raise your hands and speak to your Lord, you are already being rewarded. Even before the answer comes, the act of asking itself brings blessings upon you. And when you make dua regularly, not just in times of hardship, but also in times of ease, you build a connection that becomes your strongest support. You begin to feel that you are never truly alone. You learn to talk to your Lord in the quiet moments when no one understands what you're going through, and in that connection, you will find healing long before the situation changes. One of the biggest misunderstandings people have is thinking that dua must be answered in the way they want. But the reality is, sometimes you're asking for something that is not good for you. And in His mercy, He doesn't give it. Imagine a child asking to hold fire. The parent says, no, not because they don't love the child, but because they do. In the same way, your Lord may hold something back from you, not out of punishment, but out of protection. And perhaps, had you been given what you asked for, it would have led you further away from Him, or it would have harmed your deen. So when the dua is delayed or answered differently, know that it's not rejection, it's redirection. He knows what you need even before you ask. And sometimes He gives you something far greater than what you were seeking. You just have to wait and be patient because your vision is limited, but His knowledge is complete. There are people who cried for years over something they lost or never received, only to look back and say, I'm grateful I didn't get what I wanted back then. Because when the full picture unfolds, you begin to see that His plan was far better than yours. But to reach that point, your heart must go through purification. It must learn to surrender. It must learn to trust. And this trust doesn't come without struggle. It's built in those nights of crying, in those moments of frustration, in those times where you feel like giving up, but you still raise your hands. That's where dua becomes more than a request. It becomes proof of your love and dependence on Him. And do not think that just because your life is full of sins, your dua won't be accepted. Some of the most heartfelt, powerful prayers come from people who feel they have nothing else. Your Lord doesn't turn away the broken. In fact, the more broken you are, the more sincere your cry becomes. He is not expecting you to be perfect before you ask. He is waiting for you to ask so that He can begin to purify you. And every time you return to Him, even if it's after a long time, He receives you with more mercy than anyone else ever could. The one who makes dua is never a failure. Because the very act of turning to Allah is the beginning of victory. The heart that cries out to Him will never remain in darkness. Even if the journey is long, the light will come. There is something extraordinary that happens when you keep making dua without seeing results. You develop resilience, you develop humility, you learn patience. And most importantly, you strengthen your connection with your Lord. This is why sometimes the answer is delayed, so that you can taste the sweetness of the relationship before tasting the sweetness of the result. Because once the gift is given, the urgency of the dua may fade. But when the heart is attached to the giver and not the gift, the soul continues to rise. And remember, every dua you make builds your record in the hereafter. Even if it's not answered in this world, it is stored for you in ways that will leave you amazed on the day of judgment. Some scholars say that the people will wish none of their du'as were answered in this life when they see the reward saved for them in the next. So never feel like a du'a is wasted. Every word you say to your Lord is heard, recorded and responded to in the way that is best for you. When you feel broken, when you feel like your heart cannot take another disappointment, that's the moment to make dua. That's the moment when your sincerity is at its peak. Use that pain. Turn it into a supplication that shakes the heavens. Pour your heart out. Speak honestly. Even if your dua is just tears, that's enough. He understands what your heart is saying, even when your tongue cannot find the words. And that is the beauty of speaking to your Lord. He knows the language of your silence. And now, let's reflect on what happens when you're broken but still believing. That is a level of strength that cannot be faked. It's easy to have faith when everything is going well. But when you're surrounded by darkness, when everyone has left you, when nothing makes sense, and you still bow your head in prayer, that's real belief. That's the moment where your heart becomes purified. That's the moment when your connection to Allah becomes unshakable. And it's often in those exact moments that miracles begin to unfold. Not because of what you did externally, but because of the sincerity that erupted from within you. The stories of those before us are filled with examples of broken people who held on to belief. A woman thrown into the fire for her faith, yet she smiled. A man abandoned by his brothers, thrown into a well, then imprisoned unjustly, yet he held on to his belief. A prophet left alone in a city, injured and bleeding, yet he raised his hands and made dua. These were not moments of ease. These were moments of deep pain, betrayal, abandonment and fear. Yet the faith remained, and because it remained, so did the help of Allah. You see, when you are broken but believing, you are demonstrating the highest level of sincerity. And Allah responds to that kind of sincerity in the most beautiful ways. Sometimes Allah breaks your plans so that your heart can fully turn to Him. He removes what you thought you needed so that you realize what you truly need is Him. And once you realize that, everything begins to change. You start seeing trials as opportunities. You start seeing pain as purification. And you begin to see that being broken is not a weakness, it is a gateway to spiritual strength. Don't underestimate the power of a believer who is broken yet still prays. That person is closer to Allah than the one who appears strong but forgets to turn to Him. Because the one who is broken understands how desperately they need their Lord. Their du'as are raw, their worship is real, their connection is sincere. And it is that sincerity that brings about transformation, not just in their situation but in their soul. The greatest changes often come from the deepest pain. The most powerful du'as are made in the darkest hours, and the most miraculous openings happen after the toughest closures. But all of this only becomes clear to the one who doesn't give up, to the one who continues to believe even when there is no sign of relief, to the one who keeps knocking on the door, knowing that the door will open not because of their strength, but because of His mercy. The path to peace is not paved with ease, it's paved with trust, with patience, and with sincere supplication. And when the heart begins to rely fully on Allah, even the most painful journey becomes a road toward light. So if you feel like you're at your lowest, remember you are exactly where your dua is the most powerful. You are exactly where your sincerity is the highest. You are exactly where the transformation begins. Don't stop now. Keep believing, keep praying. And keep trusting that your Lord never lets sincere tears go unanswered. Even when every single path ahead of you is blocked, when the people around you have no answers, when your mind cannot see a way out and your heart is heavy with pain, the moment you remember who is in control, your perspective changes completely. If He could part the sea for a man who was trapped between the water and an approaching army, if He could cause a spring to gush from a desert for a crying infant, if He could protect a man inside the belly of a fish deep in the ocean, then why would you ever think your situation is beyond hope? When the people say there is no way forward, your Lord can say, be, and it will be. He will make a way where there is no way. But this happens only when you realize that it is not about your power, it is not about your plan, and it is definitely not about your ability to fix things. It is about trusting the one whose knowledge, mercy, and power know no limits. Often people are consumed by what's in front of them. The bills are stacking up, the diagnosis is getting worse, the doors are closing, and the heart begins to feel like it's drowning. In that moment, the whispers will begin, you're stuck, there's no way out, it's over. But that's only because you're looking through your own limited eyes. You're measuring solutions based on what you think is possible. You're calculating outcomes based on your own experiences, forgetting that your Lord is not limited by your logic. He created logic. He created time. He created every cause and effect. And if He chooses to make something happen, no army in the world can stop it. That's why when you believe in Him truly, your heart remains steady even when the world shakes. Look at how easily we get stressed when things don't go according to plan. One small change, one delay, one unexpected incident, and the heart begins to panic. But have we forgotten that sometimes the detour is the mercy, that the closed door is the protection, that the delay is the preparation for something even greater? He does not block your path to make you suffer. He blocks it because He is preparing you for something better. And when that realization enters your heart, even a blocked road feels like a step forward. Because now you know that He is in control and you are safe under His plan. But to believe in His plan when things are going wrong takes a level of faith that must be trained. It's not just about saying you trust. It's about showing that trust through patience, through prayer, through consistent effort, even when you see no results. It's about turning to Him not only when the storm arrives, but even while the skies are clear. Because the one who relies on Him during the ease is the one who finds Him most easily during the hardship. He does not abandon His servants. He does not create a heart and then leave it without care. He does not test without purpose. And the one who truly understands this begins to walk through life with a quiet strength. That kind of person doesn't fear what's coming because they know that even if it's painful, it's part of the healing. Even if it's hard, it's part of the purification. And even if it's delayed, it's part of the preparation. There are countless stories of people who saw their lives collapse only to look back later and see how every collapse was a foundation for something better. There are people who were broken beyond repair, but that brokenness became the reason they found faith. There are people who lost everything, and in that loss they found themselves. This only happens when you understand that Allah never takes something away without giving something in return. It may not be what you asked for, but it will always be what you need. And when the doors finally open, you realize they were never really closed. They were just waiting for the right moment. That's why it's so important not to judge your circumstances based on how they look. The outer appearance of something can be deceptive. The prison cell might be the place where your soul finds its freedom. The illness might be the reason your heart softens. The rejection might be the push you needed to find your true purpose. But if your eyes are only looking at the surface, you'll miss the wisdom beneath. So train your heart to see beyond the moment. Ask yourself, what is this teaching me? What is He trying to show me? What door is He guiding me toward that I haven't noticed yet? Sometimes we only see one solution to our problem. If I don't get this job, I'm finished. If this person leaves, I'll never be happy again. If this opportunity slips away, I'll never recover. But we forget that He has access to a million ways we've never thought of. What you think is the only road might not even be the best one. And when it closes, your world feels like it's ending. But perhaps that closed road saved you from a future you would not have survived. That's why belief in His wisdom must come before belief in your own plan. Because once you place your hope in Him, you no longer crumble when things don't go your way. You start to smile even when the plan changes. Because you know it was never your plan to begin with. When the companions were being tortured, mocked and driven out of their homes, they didn't see the full picture, but they remained steadfast, and through that hardship came the greatest victory. When the Prophet stood alone in Taif, rejected and bleeding, he didn't see the crowds that would one day gather to hear his message, but he remained patient. That is what you must do when you feel like all doors are closed. Keep walking, keep trusting, keep remembering that your Lord has a way that you have not imagined. He will open it when the time is right. Not a moment early, not a moment late, just perfect, just right. And in the midst of all this, when the heart feels heavy and the pain becomes too much, it's easy to wonder why. Why does it have to hurt? Why does it feel like my prayers are not being answered? Why does relief seem so far away? The answer lies not in the absence of pain, but in the purpose behind it. Because He does not allow pain to exist without wisdom. And sometimes pain is what brings us back to Him. It humbles us. It clears away the arrogance. It teaches us that we are not in control. It reminds us that no matter how powerful we think we are always in need of the One who created us. And through that realization comes the greatest kind of strength, a strength that does not depend on what we have, but on who we turn to. There are people who walked through fire and came out purified. People who were betrayed, abandoned, humiliated, and still walked with grace. How? Because they understood that pain was not the enemy. Despair was, and as long as they held on to hope, they were never defeated. You see, the one who endures pain while still trusting, while still praying, while still hoping, that person is loved by their Lord, and they are never alone. Their tears are counted. Their silence is heard, their patience is rewarded, and their journey, though long and filled with difficulty, is leading them to something far greater than they imagined. So if you're hurting right now, don't let that hurt turn you away from Him. Let it bring you closer. Speak to Him, cry to Him, tell Him everything. Because sometimes the wisdom behind the pain is not just in the lesson that's in the relationship that is built through that pain. It's in the way your heart begins to depend on Him. It's in the way your soul starts to feel alive again. That is the real healing. And that healing can happen even while the pain is still there. You might feel like your world is falling apart, but perhaps it's falling into place. You might think you're breaking, but perhaps you're being reshaped into someone stronger. That pain, that hardship, that difficulty, it's not there to destroy you. It's there to elevate you. And when your trust in Him becomes stronger than your fear of the pain, then the pain itself begins to feel like a path to peace. You begin to see that every tear was a step closer to your Lord. Every test was a doorway to purification, and every delay was a preparation for something far greater. So keep walking, even when it's hard. Keep believing, even when it hurts. Keep praying, even when it feels like there's no answer. Because your Lord is near, closer than you think, closer than your own heartbeat. And He will never leave the one who calls on Him with sincerity. Even when all doors are closed, He will make a way. And even when the pain is unbearable, He will send healing. Just don't let go. Keep holding on, keep trusting. Because the one who trusts will never be left behind. So next time you feel overwhelmed, take a step back and remember, you are not alone. There's a power watching over you that knows exactly what you're going through. Pour your heart out in dua. Be honest, be sincere, and then truly trust that Allah hears you and that nothing is impossible for Him. Even if every door around you closes, if you have Allah, you still have the key to everything. Keep walking, keep trying, keep praying, and most importantly, keep trusting. Because when you place your trust in the one who created you, nothing can break you.